Hello and welcome to another episode here on Cap Tech. This one comes as a request from a good friend of mine who wanted me to look into why St. Louis sports teams keep leaving, despite the fact that I really can't stand Tim Ezell. Anyway, St. Louis has had an astounding amount of sports teams over the years. I highlighted here the professional ones, the St. Louis Browns and St. Louis Maroons in baseball, in basketball, the Spirits of St. Louis, the Hawks, and then the NFL, we have the St. Louis All-Stars, Cardinals, Gunners, and Rams. And then hockey-wise, we have the Eagles and Flyers. And then there's one interesting lingerie football team that I highlighted as well. I can't help but look into that a little further as well. So anyway, with that said, let's dive in a little further. Thank you. First, let's take a look at the St. Louis Browns. They were a fantastic St. Louis team, but ultimately changed their name and moved to Baltimore. They were the team involved with the Eddie Goodell incident, where a midget was selected to go bat and take an intentional walk. It's kind of their claim to fame. But anyway, I wasn't even born yet, and I'm still a little bitter that they left St. Louis. The St. Louis Maroons were a professional baseball club in St. Louis. They did not play for very long, lasted only one season. Then next we have the Spirits of St. Louis from basketball, member of the ABA. They would go ahead and leave as well. Pretty fascinating stuff. The St. Louis Hawks were in St. Louis, of course, and became the Atlanta Hawks. Which is a little shady because it was bought by a money man and a former governor. And then let's not forget about the St. Louis All-Stars, kind of a conceited sounding name, but the St. Louis All-Stars. The All-Stars began the 1923 season with a 25-0 defeat from a team from Murfreesboro, Illinois. A bunch of interesting characters there. For the second game, the All-Stars then went on to play the Green Bay Packers. Eventually, they had financial losses. They were forced to cancel some games afterwards. The owners took what was left to their team back to Benald, Illinois, and the NFL canceled the All-Stars franchise, so it did not end well. Now, in a more recent painful memory, the St. Louis Cardinals. They moved away due to the overall mediocrity of the franchise, combined with an old stadium, which caused game attendance to dwindle. And once the Bidwells decided to move the team, this time to either Baltimore or Phoenix, Jacksonville. Nonetheless, Cardinal fans were unhappy about losing their team. And Bill Bidwell, fearing for his safety, stayed away from several of the 1987 home games. Their last home game was on December 13th. 1987, which the Cardinals won. On March 15th, 1988, the NFL team owners allowed Bidwells to move the Cardinals from St. Louis to Phoenix for the 88 NFL season. Heartbreaking. Next, we have the St. Louis Gunners, which would be considered a pretty insensitive name these days. They were an independent professional football team based in St. Louis that played the last 3 games of the 1934 NFL season, replacing the Cincinnati Reds on the league's schedule after the Reds league membership was suspended. They won their first game against the Pittsburgh Pirates, now Steelers, but lost the last 2 against the Lions and the Packers. 6 of the Reds players joined the team for the last 2 games. The team was headquarters in St. Louis National Guard Armory, which accounted for its nickname, the Gunners. The Rams were champions, the greatest show on turf. It is still painful that they would move to LA, but it was a purely economic decision. Just almost too painful to talk about. Yeah, it's over. They left. Enjoy your time in LA, Rams. And let's not forget about the St. Louis Eagles, who played in the NHL, but only for a year. Man, is anybody still kind of hung up on the whole Rams thing? Anyway, moving on. Listen, I don't want to break it to you. The St. Louis Flyers were kind of a minor league team, but they did win 5 championships while they were there, so I thought they should at least be, mentioned. The only other one I really thought we should cover is the St. Louis Saints. They're pretty fascinating because it is a lingerie football team in St. Louis, so good for them. Anyway, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it, and it ain't easy in St. Louis. They're losing the brewery, and hanging on. They could have used a football team. They don't have one, but that's all right. They got other stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you.